Well, with me on the side is none other than the Minister for the East African Community here in Uganda, Bagaine. Thanks for joining me, Honorable.
Thank you.
Wow.
Karibuni.
Yeah. What we are interested in is the issue to do with the progress of the political federation.
We are looking at the terms of reference for the appointment of a team of experts who will draft the constitution for consideration by the Council of Ministers and subsequently by the summit. And eventually, if we agree, then we'll have a referendum in the region before we promulgate the constitution. We have been discussing this matter for quite some time now. The first time the summit discussed it was in 2004 in Nairobi. And we've gone through various studies and consultations with the stakeholders of East Africa on the issue of political federation. What we have to resolve now is the model structure of the kind of federation we want. But in principle, all the 5 partner states agreed that we should have a political federation.
Tanzania seems to be not comfortable with the federation.
That is not true. And they are on record as having stated firmly and categorically that they support the political federation. And indeed, the consultations, the outcomes of those consultations are in writing, on record, showing that they fully support East African political federation. I think this is being taken out of the context by the media due to certain other incidents, and they read into it that Tanzania is not comfortable with the political federation. That is not true. They are comfortable, very comfortable with the political federation.
There were issues being raised in regard to things to do with presidential term limits. And top on the agenda was that Uganda was not walking the same talk in terms of presidential terms with other East African member states. Though of late, we are seeing Rwanda and Burundi taking Uganda's path. Don't you think that that is likely to be a serious hurdle?
The issue of the term limits should not be mixed with the formulation of the East African Federal Constitution. Once that constitution has been agreed upon, it will determine the mode of government. For example, we have elections at different times of the years, don't we? Now, when we are a federation, the constitution will determine the mode of government, the governance, the term limits, and so on. Right? At the moment, we're operating as 5 different independent partner states with different political systems. But once we come together under a federation, then one system will apply.
Now, let us talk about the fears. Do you mind sharing with us?
No, because you
those
see,
fears.
You see, there was a model structure which was proposed, which set up the kind of federal government we would have and the functions it would have, arising out of the expressions of the various stakeholders. For example, certain partner states want to keep hold of their land because that's a fear. They think some other countries are going to come and take over their land, all right? And in many other areas, resources and so on, okay? So as a result of that, those fears were addressed in a model structure that decided or proposed that those areas should remain the preserve of the constituent partner states, and we pick out core functions for the federal state, all right? This is basically what it is.
What was your level of participation in the Burundi crisis?
In the Burundi crisis, what do you mean our level of participation?
Yeah, as an East African community, how did you address the matter?
When the issue of elections came up, and President Nkurunziza offered himself to stand, there were disputes which the Constitutional Court resolved in accordance with the country's constitution. And he went ahead to have the elections. But of course, when problems surfaced, we were concerned as East Africans and as members of the same family. And the summit had several meetings discussing ways and means of assisting to resolve the problems in Burundi. And ultimately, we agreed that, yes, Burundi could have the elections, but they should aim at having a government of national unity.
But the problem in Burundi seems to be a problem that is unfolding in Rwanda, because this is something to do with presidential term limits. Uganda was the first. Isn't that worrying, the trend that is going on of countries moving away from 2 presidential term limits? And this is likely,
you see,
don't you think that the region is sitting on a molten rock that is likely to erupt anytime?
No, absolutely not. The problem we have is to look at the so-called term limits and take them as sacrosanct doctrine that it must be, right? I can tell you, for example, that when the NRM, the National Resistance Movement, took over power in Uganda and we didn't have political parties, we were better off than we are now. So the problem is that we try to equate what the Western world tells us. This is what it should be, and therefore it must be.
But you promised,
the doctrine.
You promised people democracy.
But
and you
now,
restored,
yes,
you
democracy. What does democracy?
What
does democracy mean? Does it mean political parties?
Of course, if,
no.
if you're going to talk about democracy,
yes.
There's no way you can separate democracy from presidential term limits.
That is the problem with you people. All right? Tell me, does the UK have term limits?
Of course, it doesn't have.
Does it have?
It doesn't
isn't
have.
Isn't it the founder of democracy in East Africa when they ruled us here?
But you saw.
Do they have a term limit?
But you saw, you have seen the chaos that the region is undergoing.
Please. Let's understand our situations on the ground. Let us not be copycats in political terms.
Well, thanks for joining me, Honorable Bagaine.
Thank you. Okay, welcome.